Okay, so here we are on a beautiful end of August day. We're sitting here. We're working on the life legacy of Dolores Marie Hakes. Went through her childhood of events, her life events as an adult, identity, present, aging, and life lessons and legacy. We've had to round back because we weren't able to catch Uncle Bob when we were in Chicago, and now here we're back.
Yes.
So do you want to share who is sitting next to you today?
Next to me is one of my favorite brothers, Bob Hakes.
Mm-hmm. And hello, Uncle Bob. How are you?
Hi, my name's Bob Hakes, and up here to visit my sister from in Brainerd, Minnesota, from Oak Park, Chicago, and it's just a thrill to see her at least twice a year. We have so many memories when we were kids. We had more fun, more things going on, and things that people don't see today and don't experience today. So.
Fantastic. So let's go back now. We've already gone through some of these questions, but we want to pick up because we missed you guys all together with the thing. So I want to ask, what year were you born, Uncle Bob?
I was born in November 22nd, 1934.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did your parents tell you anything about the day you were born or what was happening in the world at that time in 1934?
No, they didn't say anything. It's just that it was a tough time raising a family in those days. My mother, who had problems, and so to raise us, she supplied us with everything that we needed, and that was enough. We didn't do much in history talk. We learned history later on from grandparents and from a book that I have of the Hakes family.
Okay, and your first name is Robert. What is your middle name?
My middle name is William.
And were you named after somebody in the family?
Which is after my grandfather, William
Kisselberg?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your most vivid memory growing up? What house were you living at when you kids grew up together?
My earliest memory is 5129 George Street in Chicago.
Okay.
Earliest memories are, for example, going to Faulkner High School, kindergarten, and we always took a little blanket so that we would take a nap in kindergarten. That was the extent of kindergarten. Everybody took a little nap. Remember that, with a rug, little rug.
How about the naughty bench?
And the naughty bench we had there.
So you guys, you grew up in the same house as your as mother then came along. You guys have really had kind of the same life experiences, growing up, going to the same grade school and high school and whatnot.
Well, actually, there were 3 boys because my brother and I, we were older. And my sister became a tomboy because she wanted to do everything that the boys did and nothing that the girls did.
No.
She liked boys' bicycles, boys this and boys that, boys baseball, boys everything.
Mm-hmm. And so what was it now, thinking about that and running amok in the neighborhood and having fun together, what was can you guys describe the neighborhood that you both grew up in on 5129 West George Street?
The neighborhood
Chicago?
was a family neighborhood. People hung their clothes in the yard. They had victory gardens. In those days, in the 40s, we had victory gardens. People grew vegetables. And so neighbors would talk to neighbors over the fence. They would hang their clothes in the yard from laundry. And the neighbors had victory gardens, and it just was a very close community. The garbage man would come by, and he would say, "Rags, old iron," and
Explain, please.
well, he would come down and collect. He would say, "Rags, old iron," but it was rags and old iron he was collecting to sell for the war effort.
Okay.
We used to save our bacon grease and take it over to the butcher store around the corner and get money. They used this grease for ammunition in the war, so that was used. So we did that. We accumulated foil from wrappers from cigarette packs, and we could sell that. And so we kept busy picking up bottles for 2 cents each, and we all had.
And did all of you kids participate in that as you guys were, getting, as a youth?
And there's another thing that we did.
We all pitched in because we had to. But you wanted to have fun together.
But we were all kind of like tomboys. What we did often was climb on a fence, climb up on garages, and pick apples and pears off of trees to eat. Do you remember that? We used to climb up on garages.
And did you ever get in trouble by any nasty or a snoopy neighbor
No.
watching to see if the ball came in your yard or what was
No.
happening?
Well, we did
Well,
that.
we did have a neighbor 3 doors down that didn't like we'd play in the street, because in those days there was only 1 or 2 cars in the street, so you had the whole street to play games.
Yeah.
Over the river,
Yeah.
Johnny come over and all that. And there was a woman that we called Night Patrol, 3 doors down. She would stand on the grass and go like this and say, and didn't want anybody to step on her grass. Night Patrol.
Yes. And we'd come out there. She out
So
there.
we called her. She
out
was
there?
our Night Patrol.
She'd be watching us.
It was funny. It's funny.
And what do you feel that your parents had a good marriage? What was like in the household growing up?
They had a good marriage because my father would take a bus and a streetcar to work every day. My mother would, of course, stayed home and did the laundry, did the cooking. At certain times of the year, they would attain vegetables and tomatoes, and we would can in the basement. We had a stove in the basement, and they would boil these tomatoes and to take the skin off of them, and they pour the wax and can the vegetables. So that was kind of fun.
And did you have grandparents that were alive and around that you recall? I did ask Mom along these questions. She shared, your brother, Uncle Dick shared.
We had 3 grandmothers at one time, a great-grandmother and 2 grandmothers.
Hey, whose side was that on?
The great-grandmother was on my mother's side,
And what was her name?
and her name is Grandma Doctor. Uncle John and Mumsy's mother. We called her Mumsy because there were so many grandmothers, you'd get confused. So Grandma was Mumsy. Mumsy was Grandma.
Yeah.
And Mumsy was Catherine B. Doctor.
Kate, that's correct.
And she married William J. Kisselberg, who
Right.
you've already
Yes.
named
Yes,
after.
and unfortunately their marriage didn't last a long time, and there was animosity there, but we
What
didn't
was she
experience
like as a
that.
grandma?
What
was she like
which
as a
one?
grandma?
Grandma Doctor?
Grandma Doctor.
Grandma Doctor was a fuss budget. She would fidget on things, and she would knit and crochet, and she would love to play poker and card games, and she would take us to church, and we'd all go to church together at
St. Matthias.
St. Matthias Church, which is about a block and a half away. They had a carnival there a couple times a year, so it was a very close-knit community.
And that takes me to, if you were raised with any type of a faith in the household, was there a type of religion
I'll tell
that
you
you
the
all
kind
were
of
a
faith,
part of?
the kind of faith we had. When we were 7 or 8 years old, my father was kind of anti-Catholic, and Mother would walk 1.5 miles with her gimp to church every Sunday.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, she had a paralytic condition where she had trouble walking and trouble talking, but her mind was crystal clear, and she raised 3 healthy children, even with her shortcomings.
Fantastic.
So that was our faith. And then, of course, when grammar school, we had church school, and every Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon, we would walk down to
St. John's.
St. Genevieve's, and we would have church school, and the nuns would teach, and then we had Bible class and Christian education there, and that was basically our
So
education.
although your parents had different, being raised differently, one being Lutheran, one being Catholic, who would you say would be more dominant in the household?
One
and
was
what's the-
passive and one was active,
Okay.
and that's etc. Now, as opposed to my father's mother, Alice Hakes,
Okay.
Yes.
who was very, very obedient and Christian and went to a Methodist church, and she was
Methodist.
the peach Methodist. She was Methodist.
Was that what your dad was
Old-fashioned-
Methodist, or was he Lutheran?
Well, he was
Yes.
probably brought up that way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm trying
But
to
he
get to.
didn't, attend anything,
But the background in that
Right,
household.
right.
But
But
Grandma was her whole life
Yes.
Just exuded Christianity.
And
And
the
so
Bible verses she would say, and she would tell us stories about the Bible, about different things, and so we
She lived.
we
her,
just and
she
there's,
lived her faith.
see
really.
there's a difference between fact and faith, and what we had was faith, and that's something that once you have, you never lose.
That's absolutely, absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
What type of things do you call, both of you, what do you call the family, say, spending money on in those days? What was like
The
a
parents
big
spending
splurge
money or we?
for the family, for as a whole?
There,
Because
there
in that
was
day
there
and
was
age-
there was no extra money.
right.
My dad would bring home every Thursday
Chinese food.
chop suey every Thursday, so we
Where
had
would you
that
get
for
that
dinner.
from?
He would near his work. There was a little China shop in Madison and Cicero, so he would buy a chop suey and bring it home with the noodles and the rice every Thursday. And on Sunday, our big meal Sunday. Now this was a very expensive meal we had. Every Sunday we had a meatloaf. And they put bacon on top, and the meatloaf was delicious.
Delicious, yes.
That was our big meal. It wasn't
Yes.
a middle of the week meal. During the week, if we had a piece of bacon, you would take one piece of bacon and break it down to pieces to make sandwiches. You didn't get 3 and 4 pieces on one piece of bread.
No.
You had one piece
You
of bacon,
started
and
that,
that's it.
breaking
I started,
little
yeah,
pieces.
and it lasted longer. So we became frugal.